I would really like to kiss you right now. That is a way of asking that is actually really sexy. Number one thing that I see men getting wrong on the first date is not creating chemistry or a romantic vibe on the date. A lot of what might make somebody really great at business actually can hold them back in their dating life.
Blaine Anderson, what is it that you do?
I'm a dating coach and matchmaker for men. I help men learn how to authentically market themselves, learn how to create chemistry and flirt, and attract women they are excited about dating.
Men are struggling to get matches on dating apps. I saw another study where people are increasingly open to dating AI or dating machines, especially men.
You know, at this point, I've seen thousands of dating app profiles. Never once have I seen a man's dating app profile and been like, yeah, it's perfect. Leave it exactly like that.
You know what? Let's do this actually. I have my profile. I'm going to give it to you. I know you said you've not seen a profile that's been perfect in your mind. Let's see.
I would replace this.
Ouch. Okay, so before we get into this episode, literally right before I headed into the studio, my team handed me some research, and what it said is that less than 50% of the people that watch this channel are actually subscribed. When I heard it, I nearly fell off my chair. But no, in all seriousness, please subscribe to this channel. And if you do, I promise that we will take every part of this show to the next level. Scale the guests, scale the production, scale the marketing. So please subscribe to the channel and let's grow together. You must be one of the most followed, I would assume, dating coaches. If you look at your Instagram, your TikTok, you're closing in on nearly 1 million followers between that. Tens of millions of views across all of your videos. What is it about you and your message that you think men are resonating with, and they're just they're kind of coming to you as that person that they look to for advice?
I think a large part of that is that my advice makes sense. It's not super complicated. It's not asking you to be somebody you're not. It is straightforward, direct, and easy to implement. So I try, my Instagram is really just a tip of the iceberg when you look at my courses or one-on-one coaching, but that style transcends all of those places. So I'm always going to, one, not sugarcoat things and be direct, but then two, give actionable and straightforward advice that, again, makes sense. I always tell people when they're considering working with me or another dating coach, if you look at that person's advice and you're like, that doesn't really make sense to me, or that doesn't feel right, don't work with them. When you hear their advice, you should say, yeah, that resonates. That feels like something I could do. That makes sense. That's a good sign.
Okay, you know what? Because we're going to get deeper into it, and I want to get into your story. Before we do that, though, one of the things, and it actually says this on your website, one of the headers is how to transform your dating life in 30 days. And so I'm curious from your perspective as someone that's interviewed or coached thousands of men. Is there a client or an example that when you think about someone just having that rapid transformation, that real A to B shift in their dating life when they started working with you? Even when I say that, who's the person? You don't have to give their name, but what is the example that first comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so fortunate that I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of men at this point, that I've seen so many amazing transformations. But there's definitely one who comes to mind. It was a client early on in my career dating coaching. And I think the thing that really makes him stand out is he was ready to make change, and he was ready to do a complete overhaul and just really leaned into the advice I gave. And so he did the tactical stuff, which we'll talk more about throughout the episode, I'm sure, about tactically what to do when and why you're doing it, on dates, asking women out. But more importantly, he really took it as a sign to invest in himself. So got in shape, lost the extra 10 or 20 pounds that he was holding on to from not going to the gym, got a new wardrobe so he looked the part and his clothes fit him well. Those things together gave, and which I helped with, I actually have a stylist on my team for that reason, because you do want to look at the part and feel your best. Those things really gave him the confidence to then implement all of the tactical advice that I lay out and that I make very simple to implement. So I think that can be underrated and important twofold. One, if you're doing the tactical stuff, but you don't look the part and maybe you look sloppy and not healthy, you're not going to get as good of results. But then almost more importantly is you need to have confidence paired with it. So you can be, approaching women, but if you're not doing it in a confident way and you don't exude confidence, you're not also going to get as good of results. So if you come at dating, really anything in life, but dating as well, from a place of being really sure of yourself and what you bring to the table and who you are, whatever you're doing is going to be exponentially better. You're going to be better at it. People are going to receive you better.
You know what's interesting? So earlier on, we spoke about like the disconnect between the genders, between men and women. And I think for a lot of guys, we tend to be very logical. And so you almost try to like figure women out like it's like a puzzle or like a science experiment.
Yeah.
And so I think to a lot of men, it's like sometimes the responses and how women act is completely confusing to them. And so like even when you say things like how to be confident or how to like behave or handle certain situations, to men it's like mystified, like it's completely blurred what that even means. I'm curious, for that person that you thought about, that client example, when they came to you, what was it that they were coming for? Like what was the problem that they were trying to solve?
So he in particular, he hadn't been leaning into his dating life at all. It was one of those things that because he wasn't confident in it, it was much easier for him to just focus on his career because he had a great job. He had friends. So he just put his energy there and really was neglecting his dating life. So maybe he was, going on one date every couple months and like meeting women here and there, but he really wasn't putting in the effort because he didn't know like what to do, like how to be effective at it. And then B, he didn't really have the confidence because he wasn't sure what to do.
And then taking that all the way to the end, when you finished working with him, if you have, what point was he at?
Yeah. So he was a client who did some one-on-one. This was like I said, this was an early client. So I had some different packages then. There was some one-on-one work, but the main thing he had done was take my master class, which I still offer today. It's the first course I ever made. It's an A to Z approach to dating. And it covers, everything you need to know from how to market yourself to the women you're excited about, to where and how to meet women, how to date online, how to excel on first dates and turn first dates into 40th dates. So that was the program that he was focused on. And then we'd had a couple one-on-one calls as well. And by the end of it, he was getting matches. He was going on dates, which is amazing. But the really exciting part was a year later, he met the woman that he ended up marrying. And now they're married. And I get those emails, I would say almost on a monthly basis at this point, about engagements or marriages from men who have taken one of my programs. And that is really why I do what I do. Getting those announcements or even just like, I have a girlfriend, or it doesn't even have to, like, that's not how I don't consider success only like you find a partner. I consider success you feel confident in yourself and you know what to do in your dating life. But especially when I get those emails about, getting married or moving in together or finding the one, it warms my heart because that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point, because I think, and I feel this sometimes as a guy, which is we focus so much on our career and like making progress there. There's this tendency to completely neglect your dating life and think like, okay, I don't really need that until this is in a certain point. And there's a happiness and a fulfillment and a confidence, which I think is what you're speaking to, that comes from having feeling like you're in control of your dating life. And so we're gonna get into how exactly men can do that. But before we do, I want to get into your story, your origin story. How do you even become a dating coach in the first place? Like, how does this all come about?
Yeah, it's not something I would have predicted for myself. Definitely not something I studied at university.
Yeah.
I was working in the travel industry up until 2020, and then the pandemic hit. And so my job booking travel essentially became non-existent overnight. Nobody was traveling. So I had also been giving dating advice to my guy friends and just people in my network, never considered it as a career, but I would see my guy friends who I knew were awesome, amazing men, had a lot going for them, would be great partners, and then I'd see their dating app profiles and I'd be like, yikes, this is not translating. You're giving serial killer or whatever, that person was giving. And I would help them fix it up. I'd help them pick their photos, even take some photos of them, make it better. Then inevitably they'd get more matches. They'd be asking me about the conversations, the dates. And so I loved giving advice. I loved talking about dating and supporting my friends, men and women, in that way. And so when I found myself unemployed, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, suggested, you've been giving all these people advice one-off. Why don't you condense everything you've said into a course that you can offer them? And I really didn't, at the time, I wasn't like, oh, this is my new career. It was just like, okay, this is something to do. I'm unemployed right now. Let's see how it goes. And I loved doing it. And it turned out there was a very real need for it. And it very quickly snowballed. I started making content on Instagram about dating, and it just built from there. And here we are 5 years later. I love it. I've had over 6,000 clients now go through my programs.
Congrats.
And tons of really great relationships have come out of it. So
yeah, you know what's interesting, and it's even the same in my story. Even with starting this show, I feel like a lot of the best businesses and things that people start, and it's so enriching for their lives, start completely by accident almost.
Yeah.
Like you kind of stumbled into it.
Because it's something you're passionate about and enjoy.
Yeah, and it just naturally, organically comes about. I'm curious because you mentioned there was a point in time when you realized there was a real need for this. Mm-hmm. And so take me back to that moment in time. Like, what to you, because I even remember it in my story, those kind of early signals of like, there's actually something here. This isn't just me speaking with my friends.
Yeah.
There's actually something deeper here.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you?
So I was very deliberate about finding product market fit before I really even made the full course. So I was on Shark Tank and I told this story, and I think it was like the reason that Mark Cuban even ended up making me an offer. But I created dating app profile as myself, and I wasn't catfishing anyone. I said, like, I'm not here to date. I'm here to help you date better. Match with me if you want my free COVID-19 dating guide. So guys would match with me. I would get their email addresses. I'd put them on my email list. I would reach out to them. So I actually made sure I had people who were willing to pay me before I spent time really building the business at all. Mm-hmm. So I think I had like 8 guys buy my course before I even created the course. Yeah. I knew I had an outline. I had an idea of what it was going to be about because I was able to speak to them about it. But the fact that 8 people would pay me, I think at the time it was like $795. But the fact that in, a week's time, I was able to get 8 strangers to pay me. I barely had a website. I'd made it on Squarespace. I had no social media content. I had a few, testimonials on my website from guys I had actually helped in the past, like my friends and things. But I was like, wow, the fact that these men are willing to take this chance, knowing all of that, tells me that there is a market for this and that people are struggling and that people need help and they're willing to pay for it. So that for me, that was very early on. So that was kind of like the initial aha moment. There's something here. And then I think within 6 months, it had grown very rapidly and my Instagram was growing very quickly because I'd made a social media at that point. And that was really like, oh, okay, this isn't just like something to do for fun on the side. This is a real business.
You remember even on Instagram, like what was the first kind of reel or video that just, that went crazy, that kind of blew up?
I don't remember the first one that blew up, but I remember the feeling of posting my first video with, no followers, like literally 0 or like less than 10 followers, and creating a video, saying you're a dating coach. I felt like an imposter. It was hard. It was really hard to just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. Because I think people, they see someone who has a large following and they're like, oh, well, easy for you to say that, like, you just have to post because like you already have like people watching. And it's like, well, I didn't start that way. I literally started at 0 and started making videos and started posting videos every single day. And so, yeah, I don't know the first one that like really took off, but that I do very clearly remember the feeling of posting the first video.
Yeah. I feel like that is such a relatable feeling for like anyone that's put out anything on the internet.
Yeah. It's hard.
You know what? I want to talk about online dating. Let's get into that. And I saw actually, I saw a quote from Scott Galloway where he said that if you're not in the top 10% of attractiveness, dating as a man, specifically like online on the apps, can be a humiliating experience. And I think one of the things that I've seen, whether it's speaking with friends or just paying attention to the conversation online, is that when it comes to dating apps, there's a lot of men that just feel completely like frustrated and almost like frozen out by the experience of it. And so I'm curious for you, because you even mentioned that like when you were helping your friends, you would look, as a woman, you would look at their profiles and straight away be like, yeah, this ain't it. This ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, what are those early signs? Like, what is it that's happening, I guess, in your brain when you're like, straight away you're seeing it.
Yeah.
You're like, nah, you got it completely wrong.
Yeah. So I'll also add to that, you know, at this point, I've seen thousands of dating app profiles. Never once have I seen a man's dating app profile and been like, yeah, it's perfect. Leave it exactly like that. I always have notes. And like sometimes it's a lot of notes and sometimes just a little. But like I've never been like, great, A+ as is, which says something, you know? And like, I mean, I don't say that to be like negative, but it makes sense that a man may not or would not be able to create a profile that is overall appealing to a woman because they aren't a woman. They're not thinking about it from a woman's perspective. And even more than that, I would say the profiles that I see that are like really bad and what can be done to make them better is the number one thing is just like crappy photos. So low quality, they don't look great, selfies, blurry, you name it, not good photos. That is because that's the first thing the woman is going to see, and it's the hardest thing to get right. So that's the number one mistake I see time and time again.
You know what? You know what's interesting? Let's go deeper into that, because I think one of the things that I've realized just actually getting older, this wasn't intuitive at all, is that what is a good photo to a guy is completely different to what like a woman looks at and it's like, this is a good photo. Like I think as men, we look at a photo, we're like, oh, like I'm sitting on my car or something. Like, oh, like
that's enough.
Look at the way, I don't know, look at the side profile. Like there's weird things that we look at and we're like, this is great. Whereas I think personally what I've seen even speaking with women is they'll look more at like the environment, like the vibe, the energy. Can you kind of, because I think again, it's something that's kind of, it's blurry for men. Like it's kind of difficult to understand it from the women's perspective. Can you give that, like when a woman is looking at a profile, how is she even like, this is a good profile, like this is good, like I'm interested.
Yeah, so the number one thing your photo needs to be, or photos need to be, are high quality. So we're living in a time where you can, and that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be professional camera. You can literally do that on your iPhone. But we're all looking at really crisp, high quality videos and photos all day. So if she opens her phone and you have like a blurry selfie in the mirror, like that's just not gonna do it. So it needs to be high quality. She needs to be able to see what you look like. And then to your point, the environment and the vibe matter. She doesn't want it in your apartment, in the bathroom, at the gym. Get outside. Is the lighting good? What's behind you? What are you wearing? What are things that she's going to notice and be able to relate to? Either because you're at the pickleball court and she plays pickleball too, or you're wearing your favorite band t-shirt and she also loves that band. Think about the overall vibe and what the photo is telling her. So it's not only like, okay, what do you look like, which is important. She needs to be able to very clearly see what you look like, but it's who are you? What are you going to be like to be around? Because that's something men and women approach differently. Men care a lot more about what women look like than women care about what men look like. Women are going to care more about what it feels like to spend time with you. And that's really hard to convey in a dating app profile. But if you to the point about you have to be in the top 10% of attractiveness, there are a lot of ways to become more attractive that aren't the looks you were born with as a man. And so in person, that's something different, but online, that's the overall presence that you're portraying.
I think the point that you make on almost like the relatability of your photos of like if you love playing pickleball and you have a photo of you on the pickleball court, it's like something that if she's aligned with that, she's going to pick up on it. And so I think that's actually a great point. That I think that most guys, we don't tend to think about that when we're thinking photos. We don't think about what is she going to relate with? What can she see herself in? It's almost like your profile is an experience.
It's communicating what it's going to be like to date you.
Yeah.
And you do that through photos and prompts.
Yeah. You know what? Let's do this, actually. Here's what I want to do. I think you know what I'm about to do. I have my profile.
Great.
I'm going to give it to you. I know you said you've not seen a profile that's been perfect in your mind.
You're a content creator, though. So I will say anyone who creates content does tend to have a better eye for it.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Let's see. All right, quick break. I want to put you guys onto something brand new that's completely changed how I handle email. And it's called Notion Mail. They're the sponsor of this episode. And it's just launched. And so I've been using them for a few weeks now, and it's seriously helped me up-level how I use email. Less chaos, more clarity, and I'm just not wasting as much time in my email inbox. And so how it works is that Notion Mail connects directly to your Gmail, and then it just goes to work. And it uses AI. And so it sorts and organizes your inbox based on actually what matters to you. No more digging through clutter, trying to find emails over here. It puts the emails you care about front and center. Honestly, to me, it's been like having a powerful AI engine directly in my inbox. It's made me way more efficient. It's helped me draft better replies, adjust tone. It even suggests responses. And so if you're tired of typing the same email over and over, or you just feel like you're wasting too much time in your inbox, and Notion Mail is for you. And so here's how you get started. You can connect your Gmail to Notion Mail for free using the link in my description. So go to the description, use that link, and not only are you helping yourself when you use that link, you're also directly supporting the show. In this internet technology era, it's more important than it's ever been that as a business, you not only claim to be secure, but you can actually prove it. Luckily, the sponsor of today's episode, our friends at Vanta, are going to help you and your business be compliant. Vanta is a trust management platform that automates up to 90% of the work, getting you audit ready in weeks, not months, and they help you stay compliant with continuous monitoring, automated access reviews, and AI-powered workflows that make things like security questionnaires 5 times faster. It's no wonder that over 10,000 of the fastest growing companies like Quora and Factory all trust Vanta, and the reason why is simple. A recent IDC white paper found that Vanta customers on average achieve $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. And so whether you're a first-time founder facing your first audit or a seasoned entrepreneur trying to navigate this tricky security landscape, Vanta is the place for you. So go to vanta.com/Callum to get $1,000 off. That's vanta.com, VANTA.com/Callum for $1,000 off. Let's get back to the episode.
Okay, this is a cute first photo. I like what I'm seeing here. Good background, aesthetic. I can see what you look like, but your posture is really bad.
Wow, okay.
You're like quite hunched over.
Okay.
So I actually don't I would replace this.
Okay.
Like if you're standing up, I also tend to like first photos. It's not a requirement, but I tend to like first photos where you're looking into the camera because it makes you feel more familiar. You make great eye contact. You're very personable. You have a great smile, which I am seeing here. But if you're looking at her and smiling, that's going to feel more powerful.
Wait, so on that point, you're actually, when you're working with people, you spend a disproportionate amount of time focused on like the first photo.
So the first photo is the most important because that's what they see. That's going to dictate whether or not she looks at the rest of your profile. If she doesn't like your first photo, then it's a no. And one of the ways in person and in photos to communicate confidence is posture, which is why I don't like that you don't have great posture here. I also would take away, this is like nitpicky, but if we're doing it, let's do it right. Yeah. I would take away the prompt at the top of the photo. Guess where this photo is taken. There's nothing to guess, like an attic. Like, I don't know. And you don't have to have something there, so I would just remove it. Okay, I like this one. The way to win me over is to not immediately try out your English accent as soon as we start talking. That made me smile. That tells me something about you, so I like that as a hook, like the first prompt. Okay. He's British. We like that. Okay.
A lot of people in the comments are going to be like, I'm not English though, so this ain't going to work for me.
Yeah, don't use that if it's not for you. Okay, this is a little controversial and it's not right or wrong. You have your religion and your political beliefs. If those things are non-negotiables for you and you really want someone who shares them, then you should absolutely put them. But there's a lot left for interpretation around religion and politics. So if you're open to dating somebody with different views, or you are open, you don't need somebody, I guess saying the same thing, if you don't need somebody who matches you on those, I tend to recommend leaving them off or communicating them in your prompts. Like my typical Sunday, church with the family, pancakes after, like hot yoga to end the day, like something like that, if that's important to you.
So this is interesting because I would never even have thought of that. Yeah,
because a woman might see this and be like, oh, liberal, like, and they might make all sorts of assumptions about what that means to you. And especially in this climate of politics, it's so
polarized.
Yeah, it's so polarized and you can't really make assumptions. Okay, the second photo is great. You got one with a friend. The only problem is I like his shirt more than I like your shirt, but
ouch.
If I'm being really picky. But you look super handsome, great smile. I like that photo. Okay, I don't know what I'm not even listening to like the sound on this talking one, but I love it. Because it shows a little bit about what you do. It shows you in an interesting environment. Like, oh, are you being interviewed? Are you interviewing someone? What's going on here? You're also wearing one of the things I see guys get wrong is they're wearing like the same outfit in every photo. You now have a variety of 3 different tops like that. Your hair is different in this one. Love that.
Can you talk about because I think something that you mentioned that's interesting, the photo with a friend. And so I think some guys, they just have like, the types of photos are all the same. It's like just them, or on the other side, it's like every photo has someone else in it.
Yeah.
Can you talk? Is the variety important? Does it not matter?
I like at least one photo. Like I call it a group photo. The group photo needs to be probably less than 4 people, but ideally just 1 friend or 2 friends, and you need to be the star of it. This one works because you guys are equally front and center. But if it's a photo of your soccer team or you and like 10 dudes at a bachelor party where she can't even see what one is you, or you're like in the background, that's not going to cut it. So, but it does, I like a photo with a friend. It shows that you are social, that you have friends, you're not a loner.
Yeah.
So I like including one.
Not the serial killer vibes.
Yeah. We'll get along if you watch Love Island. That's my guilty pleasure. Okay, that works. Women definitely watch Love Island. That's an easy thing to talk about. This one's cute. You on the bike. No, like, real feedback. Is it, like, amazing? Is it telling me a ton about you? No, but it's fine. I go crazy for girls that finish their food. It's, like, cute enough. What I would say, though, is all 3 of these prompts. Okay, we've got Love Island. We've got that you have a British accent. and we've got girls who finish their food. None of them really tell me a lot about how you spend. None of them tell me anything actually about how you spend your time. So my simple pleasures, and I mean, I go crazy for, and my typical Sunday, since we're using Hinge, those all are good for teeing up a little bit about how you spend your time. Like I go crazy for, just going off the food one, finding the best burger in any city I visit. So something that's, tells me more about you. Both Love Island and the food are talking about her and what she is going to be.
Okay.
I want to hear more about who you are.
Yeah.
And then I love this one. You it looks like speaking on a stage. That's great. Ooh, but then we finish out with another one. Same shirt as the one before. Of you sitting in this podcast studio? Did you just take this photo and upload it here?
I kind of changed. I wanted there to be things off with my profile.
Okay. So it was perfect before.
Yeah, it was perfect. I wouldn't have been good content.
So while I like that photo, it's a little too similar to the other two where you have the microphone and are sitting.
Yeah.
So overall, not a bad profile. But I think there is room for improvement.
So you would say the biggest thing is the prompt that, I guess, the information that you have in there says something about who you are.
Okay, give me 60 seconds. I've got a little secret to share with you guys. So in the last month, there is this tool that I've been using, and it's been a complete game changer for me, and it was totally unexpected. And they're actually the sponsor of today's episode, and that's NordVPN. And so as you know, I'm originally from London. I now live in the US. But no matter where I am, there's one thing that I need in my life, and that's British television. Yes, including my guilty pleasure, Love Island. Don't judge me on that. But anyway, here's the problem. Streaming my favorite shows from back home used to be nearly impossible until I discovered NordVPN. And with Nord, I can switch my virtual location back to the UK in seconds and watch all of my favorite TV shows from back home, no matter where I am in the world. Oh, and one other thing I started using Nord for. I am someone that is always working from random places. Let me know if you can relate. One day I'm in a coffee shop, and next day it's an airport, a hotel lobby, and using public Wi-Fi is a risky business. Luckily with Nord, all of my internet traffic is encrypted and my IP address is hidden, which keeps me safe and anonymous on the internet. And here's the best part. I got Nord to give you guys a special deal. And so when you go to the link in my description, you'll get a discount on their 2-year plan. You will get 4 additional bonus months for free. So go to NordVPN/Callum Johnson. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's NordVPN/Callum Johnson. Thank me later and let's get back to the show.
And what it will be like to spend time with you, something you like. She already knows about herself. So, and then you can decide if she has the qualities you want once you match or once you go on a date. But your profile is not a help wanted ad. It's not what you are looking for. It is who you are. And that's how you should be looking at her profile too. Is this, you look at her profile, does she look like a girl who finishes her food? Does she watch Love Island? And it's okay to have some prompts, like one of them that doesn't communicate about you, or even like 1.5, one that's kind of like in between. But I really like at least one to give her things to connect with you about. Why you? What is she going to find interesting about you? What is she going to see herself in and connect over because you both like pickleball, or you both go to yoga, or you both love to travel? But don't put I love to travel. That's like the number one.
It's just generic.
It's generic and it's overused. Everyone at least like pretends to love travel. So like actually have travel photos, or like to my point about finding the best burger in any city you visit. Like that communicates like visiting different cities. Like you might say like, so far it's XYZ place in Dubai, and you can illustrate that you travel that way.
Yeah. How do men know when they've got it right? Like, how do you know? Because I can see a lot of guys saying that, right? Like,
you get matches.
Okay. So if you're not getting matches, then it's just, there's still something off with your...
Maybe, yeah, most likely. Dating online isn't for everybody. There are certain people, maybe it's because of where you live, or maybe it's maybe you're very short, so you're getting filtered out before people even see your profile. That doesn't mean you're doomed to have a bad dating life. It just means that online dating isn't for you. So if you've put the time in, if you've made a great profile, if you need help with that, I have a course that's just about making an online dating profile. And you're still not getting matches, consider trying an app you haven't used before with your new and improved profile. But after that, meet people offline. Even if you have a great profile, even if you're getting matches, I really never recommend that you focus all of your dating efforts online. It should always just be the cherry on top. It's a great way to get in front of people you wouldn't otherwise meet, but it shouldn't be where you're putting all of your effort for dating.
Yeah. Because I actually want to focus more of the conversation on all the stuff offline. So I've actually stopped using really dating apps. But you know what, just to kind of round it out, I'm curious for you as a woman, as a coach, even when you talk with like your girlfriends that are that use Hinge or like the dating apps, is there something that you see on a profile where like for your friends, for your single friends, they might actually like the guy's profile, but the second that I see this, it's such like a red flag that it like turns them off? Like, do you ever see those sort of, because it seemed like a lot of the stuff on my profile, it was like, okay, like it's okay, like it's good, like it's decent.
Yeah,
is there something which
decent.
suddenly like will turn a girl
so
off?
There's definitely polarizing things you can have in your profile that some women aren't going to care about and some women will care about. So it could be like you have a photo with a gun. Some women that's going to be fine with, but some women are going to be, nope, that's an automatic no for me. For some women, it's the photo with the fish. You've probably seen that meme online of just like girls talking about men who like have the fish in their photo. No, you haven't heard about the fish? Women online are like up in arms in general about the men who like have the photo holding the fish because they just think it's like so cheesy that it's like, yeah, look, I
what's
caught.
Like
they go fishing.
Okay.
Like they go fishing and they're like holding a fish and they're like all proud of themselves for their like manly task. It's like, sure, if you actually love fishing and that's something you do regularly, maybe you include that in your profile, but is that something she's going to connect with you over? Probably not.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think it became such a thing because so many guys, that's the other thing. They just don't take that many photos of themselves. But like, you better believe if you caught a big fish, you got a photo of it. So like, that's what ends up in their profile because it's just like one of the 6 photos they have.
That's good. So taking it away from Hinge or Bumble or Tinder, I think I read something that like, it's actually Instagram that is the biggest dating app. I'm curious, because I'm sure like the principles are largely the same. If someone's thinking about like their Instagram profile as like a way to meet women and like not solely for that, but like as part of that pie, what do you find men that do really well on Instagram? What is it about their profile, the way that they post, even their stories that they're doing that is working, that women gravitate towards?
Yeah, so all of the same things about quality of photos and specificity in what you're writing still apply to Instagram. What I would say though is like if you're having trouble meeting women on dating apps, Instagram probably isn't going to be for you because all of the same skills need to be there and be prevalent, be present. What I would say about posting is if you're going to use Instagram, you don't have to be an influencer. And in fact, posting every day and like photos of yourself like probably is going to be a turnoff to a lot of women. Instead, focus on lifestyle photos. Again, more about what it's like to spend time with you, the cool hobbies you have, the things you're doing, the places you're traveling, to showcase who you are. And yeah, have a couple photos that are good quality and show what you look like. But she's going to be more interested in the other aspects of your life. And it can look too try hard when guys have like a ton of photos of themselves. Like, you don't just want like every photo on your grid to be like you smiling at the camera. It's like gives weird vibes.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? So we did the roast of my profile. I got things to improve. But I saw you say this on Twitter. You said I don't love dating apps, even for men who get matches, because you will always attract a higher quality women in person. This is because your vibe and your personality show through in person. And so I want to switch gears and I want to talk about, because I think there's actually a lot of guys and women as well that they're almost like fed up with the dating apps. Like they're completely
sure.
over it, and they just want to do in person. Can you actually speak to that dynamic, like from people that you've spoken with and what you've seen? Why is it that like we're kind of over it with the dating apps, and why also do you say that it's actually better in person?
Yeah. Well, I think people are over it because it's not resulting in the results that they want. They're not meeting people that they're excited about. It takes so much swiping and effort to end up on one date with someone who then you may or may not even vibe with. So it just feels like when I talk to clients, it's like, oh, I'm putting in all of this effort and I'm still not even meeting and dating women I'm excited about a lot of the time. And the dating apps, they haven't changed in a long time. They've been very stagnant in what they offer. And so I think people are burnt out from it, and we spend so much of our time online as it is, whether it's ordering your groceries or getting your food or you're at work. It's like bringing what should be a really personal, emotional connection onto a screen. It just doesn't translate well. And so the reason I say that you can do so much better in person is for all of those reasons that you just read, like your vibe, your personality, your confidence. Those are going to be a lot more effective in, I don't want to say convincing, but selling yourself, so to say, to a woman who you're interested in. A woman might pass on you online because you don't make a great profile, or maybe you even do. You take my course and you make a great profile, but she still might say, he's not my type. He's too short. He's too liberal, whatever it may be. Not for me. But if she were to meet you in an organic setting where she can chat with you and you have a little banter and you have great posture and you come across as confident, she'd be like, oh, this guy's like pretty cool. I'd go on a date with him. I don't know that I would have matched with my husband on a dating app.
Yeah. That's an interesting insight. You know what? To the guy that's listening to this, and they're completely fed up with the dating apps, but they're kind of in this point where they've been stuck in this cycle of like all of their dates, the few that they do get, come through the dating apps. And so that transition of like, okay, I'm going to stop doing the dating apps. It's like, okay, is my dating life going to completely dry up? I'm someone I'm very big on step one. Like, what is step one? Like, what's the first thing? And so to that guy, to that person that's looking to I only want to meet people in real life, what do you, like when you have conversations with them, what is step one?
So it's very specific really to where that person is starting from. Because I work with guys, there are a lot of different types of men, but like there might be a guy who today is like barely leaving his house. He's, like I said, getting his groceries online, eating takeout that is getting delivered to his door, works from home. And so his step one of, let's say he doesn't want to date online, his step one is not, go to the grocery store and start talking to beautiful women and ask them out. That's not feasible for him. That would be, jumping 100 steps ahead. His step one might literally be, you need to leave your house one time a day and interact with somebody. And I'm not even in a romantic sense. Go to the coffee shop and make eye contact with the barista and pay her a genuine compliment, or him. It doesn't matter who it is. Say hello to the people in your apartment building when you get in the elevator together and make eye contact. Those baby steps of just getting comfortable interacting. And for someone like you who's, clearly confident, makes good eye contact, you're very personable, that might sound like common sense. But to a lot of guys out there, guys who have great jobs and have a lot going for them and are handsome, even doing that is something that they aren't doing today. So taking that baby step of just interacting more. Okay, let's say you're ahead of that and you're already doing that. You leave your house, you have friends, you have some hobbies, you go out on the weekends, but you're not meeting women in person. Your step one is going to be a little bit different. What I would say to that guy is you need to do an audit of the places you are spending time and see, okay, are there women I would be interested in dating in these places? Because not all hobbies and all places are created equal. If you're, maybe you are like you're playing video games, or you're going to a CrossFit gym, but it's 90%, 99% dudes. Like, that's not going to be a good place to meet women. So if you aren't coming across women that you think are cute or that you would want to talk to, mix that up. Maybe instead of going to CrossFit 5 days a week, 2 of those days you take a group fitness class that is 60% women, you know, or maybe even 90% women, depending on what kind of class you take. Mm-hmm. So it's about spending time in environments where you can see people. It doesn't even have to be that you are necessarily interested in them, but it's places that are going to allow you to build community and a social circle that could lead to meeting people. So that might be you join a pickleball league and you meet someone, you make a friend at that pickleball league, a guy or a girl, and then they have a housewarming party. And at that housewarming party, you meet a woman who you hit it off with and you ask on a date. It has a ripple effect as soon as you start expanding your social circle.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? And I actually had this about, I would say maybe 12, 18 months ago. I had this in my own life where I realized, and I think a lot of guys are like this, it wasn't really about like being attractive or being able to make conversation or any of those things. It was like, you're simply not actually coming across enough women on a weekly basis that this could go anywhere that would be good for your dating life.
Yes.
Like it's a weird it's a strange analogy in a way, but it's almost like sales. I think it would make sense to men. It's almost like sales in a way. I remember Alex Hormozy said this. He's like, a lot of businesses have a volume problem. It's not that they're like bad at what they do. They have a volume problem. They're not getting their message in front of enough people.
Yes.
And it's very similar with dating, where it's like you're not in the places, you're not having enough conversations. It's just like a volume issue. You know what, before we go deeper in that, I want to talk about what you said about the baby steps. Because I think even for men that actually are pretty confident once they get in conversation, it can be like, well, why does talking to the cashier at the grocery store, like, why will that help me? It's actually deeply helpful just being in a more conversational vibe just mindset, throughout your life. Can you actually just break down the importance of the baby stepping? Because I think men, we skip over that.
Yeah. Well, think about if you aren't chatting to people on a regular basis, you get out of practice. It's like with anything else. If you haven't spoken with someone, if you haven't told a joke, if you haven't been playful and had banter or flirted, then it's really hard when you see that attractive woman you're interested in to just turn it on for her. So you want to get in that vibe and that mindset with everyone you interact with. Flirt with the world. Flirt with and people say, flirt, like what? Like that's inappropriate. It's like, flirting first of all shouldn't be sexual with someone who you don't know, whether it's a woman you're attracted to and you're interested in asking out or it's somebody else. Flirting is just being playful. It is teasing. It is making somebody else smile. And you can do that with the grandma who's waiting to cross the street or, you know, someone who you've run into in the elevator. Like that is not something that should just be reserved for women who you want to date. So just practicing that and seeing what lands, seeing what works, like having that mood about you is going to be really helpful.
Yeah. You know what's actually crazy, and I see it because I live in New York, just being conversational. I love what you said, flirt with the world. That's such a good way to put it. I feel like that already puts you in like, I don't know the percentages, but almost like the top 1%.
Yes.
Because even when you just walk around New York, I'm sure it's similar in Austin, or you go on like the subway or the bus or whatever it is, everyone's very stifled, right? Like everyone's just in there.
And it's getting worse and worse with technology.
Yeah.
They're looking at their phones, they have their headphones in. And
so that ability to just strike up a conversation or just make a comment, like a compliment to someone, already it's like, oh, wow, this is like, he's charismatic.
Yes. Oh, wow, he's making eye contact and smiling. Like you're ahead of a lot of people around you. Like, talk to the person in line next to you or behind you. Talk to the person at the table next to you. Just be friendly. And like you said, you're going to be ahead of most people.
Okay, you know what? So on the volume problem that we spoke about, if there's a guy right now that he's like, I literally work and then I go to the gym and then I go to sleep. I'm sure that you have you've met guys like this. They're almost starting their like extracurricular hobbies from scratch. Are there certain activities that you, I don't want to say recommend, but you're like, this is actually good places to meet women if you're just starting out. Like, this is good activities to just start doing.
Well, backing up one step from that, what I always recommend is start keeping an approach journal. So that is oftentimes guys will be like, oh no, I see women, I interact with women. I'm like, but is it on Instagram? Is it on OnlyFans? Because that doesn't count. And those platforms give you the impression that you're coming across a lot of women in your day-to-day life when the reality is you aren't. So take a week and write down every time you either see a woman who you find attractive or interact with them, and you will probably be surprised about the low volume, which will indicate, like you said, it is a volume problem. So I think that's a really good starting point to just sort of take stock of where you're at. And it could be surprising.
Just quickly on that point before you go on.
Yeah.
Is there like, when you see a guy, and I'm thinking about the guy that like, you see the way that he's moving, maybe he's like one of your clients and you're like, he is well on the way to actually meeting a girl that he's really excited about, like meeting a great partner. I don't want to make it like a hard number, but is there like a certain amount of volume that you're seeing, like they're approaching a certain amount, or they're just like, they're coming across enough?
Yeah.
'Cause I think guys will be like, how do I know if I'm doing enough? Because it's like, well, I spoke to one person this week. Is that good?
I would aim for one approach a day. That's like a really good standard. And again, early on, it doesn't have to be someone you're interested in. It can just be someone generally to get the reps in, because there are going to be plenty of days where, especially depending on what your criteria for a partner is, you might not come across somebody you're interested in dating. But as long as you are practicing the approach, that way when you do come across someone you're interested in dating, you'll be more equipped to handle it and therefore get a better result. And to the point we spoke about before, it's not just like, oh, I'm doing something, I'm going to go to this thing or pick up this hobby because the woman I want to date is definitely going to be there. It's about expanding your social circle and your community to meet more people generally, because we are all going to be more inclined to go on a date with someone who's 1 degree removed. Like if you meet somebody at a party and you have a mutual friend, you're going to be a woman, and I think a man too, would be much more inclined to go on a date with that person than if they just approach you at the grocery store and you know nobody in common. You have a lot of built-in trust when you're 1 or 2 degrees separated. So meeting people through your friends, through your acquaintances, through your hobbies, not only gives you more to talk about, but comes with a layer of trust that can be really helpful for progressing from the initial conversation to actually getting the phone number and going on the date.
I remember I heard someone say this and it resonated the way they framed it, of like almost increasing your dating surface area. Just like the opportunity, just putting yourself in situations where it can happen. And so you mentioned parties as one of them, or like birthday parties. I'm curious, what are some other good places?
Yeah, that's more of just an example of how you might end up someplace through your hobbies that you end up meeting somebody. Because I do sometimes hear from guys, well, like, you said yoga, and I went to yoga, and there was like nobody I was interested in dating in the yoga class. And it's like, okay, you've kind of missed the point, you know? But I would say, so I always encourage guys to have one like a physical fitness activity that also leads to meeting women, just because I'm such a big proponent of being not necessarily being fit in the sense that like, oh, you have low body fat or like are muscular, but the fact that you'll just feel better about life and yourself if you have movement in your life and you break a sweat a couple times a week. So I love the idea of combining that, which I think will make you not only look better and feel better, with being able to meet more people. So that could be yoga, Pilates, group fitness classes, run club, something in that realm. I always recommend incorporating maybe multiple things under that umbrella. And then outside of that, it's things that appeal to you. So if you're like, the idea of doing pottery sounds awful, like obviously don't take a pottery class. But if that's something you're like, hey, I took ceramics in high school and I actually really enjoyed that semester, like I should try that again. That's a great activity for you because it's going to be mostly women. I feel like there are very few activities that, you know, aren't mostly women. That's an extreme exaggeration, but I do feel like women are more inclined to put themselves out there and pick up hobbies and do, you know, little things that bring them joy outside of like work, gym, feeding themselves than men are. So if you join a book club, if you go to, an author speaking at a bookstore, if you take any sort of art or creative class, if you take a creative writing class, if you go to a poem reading, those are all places that I've had clients meet women and that I've been myself. And it's always almost more women than men.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the point of like doing something consistently.
Yeah, you
Because
can't go once and then rule it out. Even take yoga, for example. Like I'll say, like, you should try yoga. That's something you're interested in. Oh, I went and it was like all old ladies. It's like, okay, well, try a different studio, try a different time of day, try a different instructor. You can't just go once to any sort of activity and rule it out. You have to try like different times of day, different places. They're all going to have different clientele. So experiment. That's the biggest mistake I see men making across their dating lives, not just in picking hobbies, is just like trying something once and then giving up because it didn't have the outcome they want. The guys who are the most successful stick with it. They iterate. They A/B test. They don't get frustrated because one woman rejects them or they do an activity that didn't have the outcome they wanted. They try again.
It's like, I've learned it's like a fundamental part of being a man is actually putting yourself out there repeatedly, getting rejected. But it's like the same it's not just dating, it's like any field. Like it's the same in business. Like you put yourself out there so many times for like one yes, but it's only that one yes that matters. You know what? Something I feel like every guy wants to be able to do this. Like have this skill set in their toolkit, which is just being able to approach women. And I think one of the things that was interesting actually, even in the prep for this episode, you had done a study or like a survey of like polling like single people and actually like just understanding that women actually want to be approached. Can you break that down and then we'll talk about how men can do that?
Yeah, so I conducted a survey of 13,000 single women, and 95% said they would rather meet their partner. 97% said they would rather meet their partner in person than online, and 95% said they wish that they were approached more often. And I'll asterisk this by saying, yeah, I realized it was single women who were surveyed. So of course, single women want to be approached more often. Like I'm married. I'm not like, oh, I wish I was approached more, that. So there's definitely a bias there, but that is just, it just shows that you need to approach a lot of women because a lot of the women you approach aren't going to be single. Maybe you aren't going to be their type. Maybe they aren't interested in men. There are a lot of reasons outside your control that a woman isn't going to be interested in you. So even if you're doing everything right on your end, you need to approach a lot of women to get that yes, because it just takes, the one to get that ends in the date.
I think for a lot of guys, it's like you have that experience. Maybe you're walking down the street or you're in the grocery store, the subway, whatever it is, and you see that girl and it's almost like time stops for a second. You're like, that is something special right there. And it's like that, I think immediately what comes after that is almost like the anxiety of like, okay, what am I going to say? This is like weird to do it in this environment. Can you talk about like, take me through that process for men of like, how can I go from seeing that girl in public, and even the data supports it, that if she is single, she probably would like, speaking in generalities, to be approached. How can guys go from seeing the girl to actually making a confident approach?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, the most important thing is that you just do it. You rip off the Band-Aid and do it. And how you approach and what you say can be dependent on the environment that you're in, but you don't need to have the perfect opening line. You don't have to play off necessarily what's going on in the situation. A simple approach, but just approaching, is the most important thing. So saying something like, hey, you caught my eye and I just wanted to come over and say hello. Or I noticed you from over there and I'd kick myself later if I didn't introduce myself.
So good.
Or, hey, I think we made eye contact if you did. So I wanted to come and introduce myself. That is not, you can have some of those openers in your back pocket that are basically usable and effective in any situation. So you don't have to think about what to say. Because oftentimes if you stop to think, the moment passes. She keeps walking. She gets up and leaves. You psych yourself out of it because you think too much. And that's where it comes back to the practice, the baby steps that we talked about. If you're used to just talking to people left, right, and center, then it's not going to feel so anxiety inducing and such a big deal to talk to this person, because you talk to people all the time and you know some people are friendly and some people aren't, and that's okay. So what's the difference? Just because she's beautiful? No, you treat her like you would treat anybody else, which is with kindness and interest in a confident manner.
You know, I actually I call it like the perfect guy paralysis, which is, I think for a lot of men, it's like anytime you approach someone, you want to do it in the exact perfect way. Like, oh, it was so smooth and suave in the environment, and like no one even really saw that I was approaching, or like it doesn't stand out, or she just has the perfect reaction. From coaching a ton of guys, why do you think that we have that, like that overthinking, that overanalyzing of like trying to get it just right versus, just to your point, just saying something?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two things with that. One is that we see movies and TV shows where there's like oftentimes this perfect witty one-liner and then the girl swoons for it.
James Bond.
Yeah, and that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And then second, at least for a lot of the men I work with, they tend to be analyzers. They tend to be overthinkers, and they tend to be analytical. And oftentimes those qualities may make them very good at their job or be great in business environments that they find themselves in. But it's the same thing. Those same things that make them great at their job can be holding them back in their dating life.
Okay.
Yeah, be thoughtful at work. Be deliberate. Make sure things are perfect. But you don't need to do that with every aspect of your dating life.
Yeah. You know, further on that point. So let's say I go up and I make the approach, and it goes well. Like she's open to the conversation. How does a man get from, okay, like I'm in the conversation? Because I think for a lot of guys, we think about, okay, just approaching. There's a lot of things that have to come after the initial approach.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I see guys getting wrong all the time, is rushing the second step of the conversation. So they approach and then they ask for the phone number because they're so in their head about just like, okay, I just need to approach, and my goal approaching is to get a phone number. When you approach a woman, your goal should not be to get her phone number. Your goal should be to get to know her a little bit, to see if you want her phone number, to see if she's giving you the signs that she'd be interested in giving you her phone number. If you just blow through looking for those signs both directions, and then ask for the number, you're going to hear no a lot more because you haven't created that connection and that trust, and you haven't maybe seen very clear signals that she's not interested in you. If you're talking to her and she's looking around and not engaged, not asking you questions back, don't ask for her phone number. Say, well, it was nice to meet you, or have a great day, and move along. And you're going to reduce the number of no's and rejections that you hear, and therefore confidence hits you take. My preference would be if a girl says no, it doesn't hurt your confidence, but it's not fun. It's never fun to get rejected. So you can avoid a lot of that if, instead of just blindly asking for numbers, you're really looking for, is she showing interest in me? And then also, am I interested in her? Does she have interesting things to say? Is she kind? Like, does she seem to have some of the qualities I want in a person? And obviously, a lot of that isn't going to be immediately obvious in a quick conversation. You don't need to feel confident this is your wife to ask for her phone number, but she should seem friendly to you. And if you meet her at a hobby, which is, again, it's going to be easier because you're going to have things to talk about than approaching a woman in a totally non-specific place like the grocery store, the street, or a nightclub. You can talk about the mutual hobby or the place that you met, and that, again, is going to help you determine, like, okay, do we have things in common? Am I still interested in her besides, oh, she looks good in yoga pants, so I'm going to ask for her phone number?
Yeah. You know it was interesting to me, and I think it's actually a core part of the reason why we have this disconnect between men and women, is that the other side never gets to like hear how an action, so for example, for women, they don't usually get to hear like when they behave a certain way, how that makes a man feel.
Yeah.
Or like for men, when they behave a certain way, how that makes a woman feel. There's like almost like this space in between where there's like no communication. It's like it's a dead zone. And so I'm curious for your perspective, when a man gets into an interaction and it's like straight away like pushing for the phone number, how does that feel from the perspective of a woman? Like, why is that so off-putting?
Yeah, well, it can definitely feel a bit desperate. So it feels like, okay, you don't have standards outside of my physical appearance to get my phone number. Like I said, if you're not taking the time to form some sort of connection or trust, then it feels like you'll just take any woman's phone number who will give it to you. So why I want to feel special. I want to feel like you are trying to know a little bit about me before you want to invest your valuable time in me by getting my phone number or asking me on a date.
You know, one of the things that was interesting actually, and I saw it in your story, is like you got, and I think this is how you got published in the New York Times. They were talking about your texting course. Can you kind of share with me that story of like, how does that even come about? That I don't even know what you were doing at that point. Like you're posting reels on Instagram, then all of a sudden you're getting published by the New York Times. And what was it about that texting course that was like, it was something that they wanted to speak about?
Yeah, I think it was the fact that a texting course was even needed that was interesting to the journalist, because it seems so obvious, like, oh, texting is just something that everybody does now every single day. But the reality is, when it comes to dating, there are certain ways to text that are going to be more effective and certain ways to text that are going to shoot you in the foot every single time. And over texting is a key component to the shooting yourself in the foot every time. Generally, from what I see, men are much more likely to text themselves out of a date than into a date. So I'm a big proponent of leave texting to logistics only for the first few dates and get to know each other in person.
Okay, so and let's even carry forward the example of like I met a woman just, you know, at the grocery store or like on the subway or whatever. I get her number. There was like a mutual attraction when we met. What are, and maybe not the exact messages, but more the approach. What are the messages that you're saying to get from that to an actual first date?
Yeah. So ideally, this is again why you've spoken enough in person to create some amount of connection and trust. So you don't need to do that over text. She already likes your vibe, so she's already going to be interested in a date. That's why she gave you the phone number. So you text her, you know, your name, let her know who it is, a brief follow-up message, ideally, again, something that you connected over in person. Hey, it was great to meet you at yoga. Thanks for the tip on the coffee shop around the block. Like, I loved it. Because, again, you're calling back something that you spoke about because you chatted for a couple of minutes. Then, you know, she's like, yeah, nice to meet you too. I would love to continue the conversation over drinks this week. Are you free Thursday? Boom. You're just asking for the date with something specific. A day and a place, ideally, to give her something to say yes to. Not, it'd be great to see you again sometime. Yeah, it'd be nice to see you again. And then you still need to, again, ask for the date. Just be specific and go for the meetup initially. And I've had clients say that, you know, so then the woman says yes. And they say, great, I'll follow up with you on Thursday to confirm the time or whatever it is, the follow-up text from there. And when we're like, oh, does that mean you don't want to chat until then? Like women are expecting to chat. I've never had a client then turn down when he says something along the lines of, I like to get to know people in person, but if you have any questions that you want to ask or something that you want to chat about, I'm happy to talk here as well. And usually they just say, okay, great, like, well, I'll see you on Thursday. And then oftentimes later they say, like, that was a really interesting boundary that you set, and I actually found it attractive that you were able to just say, like, no, I want to get to know you in person versus create a pen pal situation.
Yeah. Well, it's such a confident frame. It's such a confident frame of mind. And I think the one thing that kind of comes across listening to you is that everything kind of fits and leads on to one another. And so what I mean with that is, like, in the beginning, we spoke about the baby steps of like becoming more conversational in your life. And so that means that when you do actually, you are actually speaking to the woman you're interested in, there's actually, the conversation is just going down interesting like little rabbit holes and you're like learning details about them that when you then come to message them, you can follow up on. I think to your point, it's like for the guys that go in and they're like, straight away for the number, even if you get the number, there's nothing to follow up with because you haven't had any conversation.
Exactly.
And so it's like everything, if you're doing it right, everything will feel very organic and smooth. And it's like this gradual progression to the date.
No, you're so right. And that's why I think my courses and the way I speak even on social media has resonated with men, to your question earlier, is because it does flow together. It makes sense. Any one thing in isolation, it makes sense, but then it also supports the next step in the process. You're not just approaching to approach. You're approaching in a way that then leads to a conversation, and the conversation then leads to a phone number, and the phone number leads to a date, and the date leads to a kiss, and the kiss leads to a second date. And I'm very intentional about each of those steps.
Yeah, I think I saw you mention this online, that every now and then you'll almost get like I don't even know what to call it, like the unworkable client, like the unfixable, like you just can't make the transformation happen. Can you share one of those stories? And then what is it about them that is like, actually it's just not possible to even just get a result with
Yeah,
them?
I mean, it's happened more than once, and it's always the same thing. It's that he's not willing to take action. You don't get better at dating or at flirting or at texting by watching a course on it. You get better by taking action, getting outside your comfort zone, trying something new. And some people just aren't willing to do that. You don't just get to pay the money and then all of a sudden you have the skill. It's like with anything else. It takes effort, it takes action, it takes iteration.
As a coach, how quickly can you tell, like, okay, like this is just not going to work, like they're not going to action anything?
Yeah, I try and cut people off like that before they make a purchase with me. But when they're argumentative before, or like, well, I want you to convince me why this is going to work for me. And it's like, that's not my job. Like, if you see this and you're like, hey, I want to make change, like this seems like something that could work, I'm ready to put in the effort, then like, let's go. I will help you do that. I will give you the recipe, but you've got to bake the cookies. If you're expecting me to do the work for you because you can pay for it or whatever, that's not going to be a recipe for success.
Okay, no, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about. I want to talk about first dates for a second. I've done everything that Blaine has been telling me on this podcast. You know, I've baby stepped it. I've done the activities. I've met the girl I've liked. I've approached her. You know, we've texted. I've got her on the first date. And then the first date, and maybe even from my perspective, it was like pretty good. And then afterwards, it's like radio silence. When you have clients that like they have that experience, in your mind, what are the things that men tend to get wrong on the first date?
So I would say the number one thing that I see men getting wrong on the first date is not creating chemistry or a romantic vibe on the date. So this goes back to something I said before, where a lot of what might make somebody really great at business or even in their personal non-romantic life actually can hold them back in their dating life. So being super formal or super structured, not being playful, not touching at all, those are things that are totally normal and appropriate in a meeting, but aren't going to serve you well in your dating life. When you're on a date, you should be initiating physical touch. You should be leaning in and making eye contact. You should be teasing and flirting with her. You should go for a kiss at the end of the date if it feels appropriate. If you don't do any of those things, she might think, you might hear, you're a really nice guy, but I just didn't feel a romantic connection. But this isn't the vibe I'm looking for. If you are consistently hearing that, it's not probably that the package, like that what you bring to the table is the problem. It's that you aren't doing a good job presenting yourself as a romantic partner. And I see that all the time.
You know what? It's interesting. It's almost like I think being playful, being flirtatious, the banter, the back and forth, it's almost like a different style of communication.
Totally.
And I think to some men it feels completely foreign. It feels like illogical almost, because it's a vibe more than like a logical transactional conversation. When you're working with clients, how can someone even like, can you practice actually like flirtatious or playful conversation? Because I think for some men, it's like, I'm this way in my life, in my professional life, all week. Then all of a sudden I go on a date on a Friday night and now I need to be like, charismatic and having banter. It's like, is there a way that you can even practice these sort of skills?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I'll say two things. One is, if you're going straight from work to a date, it's often helpful to break that up. If you're rushing from like your last meeting to a date, you're probably going to show up in work mode. So schedule your dates in a way where you can go on a run, where you can watch a comedy podcast, where you can call a friend to get out of that work mindset and put you in the right mindset for a date. That's a separate topic. But what I would say about being able to practice it is, yes, it is. These are learnable skills and they are practicable skills. This is, again, why you're flirting with the world. You're flirting with everybody. So when you come to the date, it's not like you're only turning on that side of your brain then. I actually have a mock date specialist on my team because a lot of my clients, they know me, or especially if I'm working with them one-on-one, it's like flirting, like doing a practice date with me is different because we already know each other. So I actually have a woman on my team who they will go on a date with to get feedback and be able to practice those skills that we've been building. And if you're someone who are like, I'm not playful at all, there are ways to build that muscle as well. Consider a stand-up class, take an improv class, do a public speaking class. These are things that are going to get you more, one, good ways to meet people, and then also just get you more comfortable and confident getting out of your bubble and out of your head. And I'm not saying you have to be a stand-up comedian to have a thriving dating life. That is not it. But you do want to be able to make her smile.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things I told myself this maybe about a year ago, and hopefully I've been sticking to it, is I feel like so many times on first dates, it's always like getting drinks or going to the bar or something, right? At least if you're in New York. I assume it's like that in a lot of the big cities. And it's so boring. It's so like played out, like everyone's done it before. And I almost think about sometimes actually the setting of the date, you're like shooting yourself in the foot with like before it's even begun. Yeah. Just because of the setting of the date. Can you talk about like what is, even when I'm picking locations or like things to do, what are the things that I can, like in choosing that location, what is going to set it up for success? Like what are the good places to go on a first date?
So there's a lot to think about there. What I'll start off by saying is like my blanket rule for a first date, especially if this is somebody who you don't know very well, like you met them online or you met them out and about, maybe at one of your interest areas or hobbies, but you've only met them once or twice. The first date is really just a vibe check. So you want to make it easy for her to say yes to, so you want to keep it lightweight. Nobody wants to commit to a 3-hour sit-down dinner or a 5-hour baseball game with somebody that they don't know. So thinking about how to keep your first date convenient and easy, while also being, a fun date is important. So I'll start by saying that. I like lightweight first dates. And then what the actual first date is should play to your strengths. So if you're somebody who struggles to make a romantic connection and set a romantic vibe, going on a walk in the morning probably isn't going to be good for you because it's not going to facilitate that sexy environment. You should maybe consider a cocktail bar or, even like a tapas place where it's lower lighting, you can sit next to her. It has a built-in sexier vibe and all of the pressure isn't on you to create a romantic setting. Some of the work is already done for you. So that depends on who you are. Whether you are going on the walk or grabbing coffee in the morning or going to a sexy, cocktail lounge at night, think about how proximity and how you can sit next to her. If you're sitting as far apart as we are, it's going to be really hard to brush up against her arm or to touch her hand or to, as a point of emphasis or when you're laughing, reach out and touch her knee. So think about the setting and how you're going to sit next to her. Maybe you're sitting on a bench enjoying coffee, so you can, kind of have your arm around her, be side by side. Maybe you're sitting at a high top where it's a circle, and so you can be next to each other, or even kitty corner to one another, or
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's like
next
the
to each
perfect
other.
one. Where
yeah.
Yeah.
that's going to be a lot better. So keeping those things in mind is more important than like anything that you are exactly doing, because that's going to depend a lot on what you like to do, what she likes to do, the city you live in, and the options that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you almost, I think that's so good, by the way. And I love how specific you are. Like, I can tell that you've coached. You said 6,000 guys, right?
Not one-on-one, but yeah, I have gone through my courses and coaching programs.
Yeah, I can tell. I think one of the things, and I think this is actually an underrated point, it's something that we don't think about too often, especially as men, is actually having your own standard. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of guys go into dates of like, I just want her to like me.
Yeah.
Versus like, are you actually having a good time? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of men end up in this situation where like they actually get frustrated with dates because they can kind of feel it from the woman sometimes of like, it was like she was just passing the time. Mm-hmm. Like she was never actually really, it almost felt like she wasn't interested. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk on that? Because I think there's a part of dating which is actually just like self-confidence and having like your own standard. Mm-hmm. And not just saying yes to like anyone that would be interested. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that? Because I'm sure that you've had that with clients. Yeah. Like they have no standard.
Yeah. Well, that even goes back to what I was saying about approaching and having the conversation. You're not approaching just to ask for her phone number. You should be trying to ascertain whether you want her phone number from your perspective, not just if she'll give it to you. Mm. So the same thing is absolutely true on dates. So I always say 1/3 of your effort should be creating connection for her. So helping her see that you have things in common and feel connected to you through your mutual interests or values, whatever. 1/3 of your effort should be trying to see if there's fit. So understand if she fits what you're looking for and matches your standards. And then 1/3 of your effort is just flirting and having fun. So even if those two things aren't it and like she's not the right one for you, hopefully you can still both flirt a little bit, have some fun, and, you know, chalk it up to a good practice date. Mm. So all of those things are equally important when you go out with somebody. Mm. So I think a mistake guys will often make is, they go into the date just trying to impress her. And that oftentimes ends up coming off as needy. And maybe they even miss some red flags that would have told them sooner, like, hey, maybe she's hot. Maybe she's even really interesting and cool, but she doesn't fit the things that I am looking for. Mm. And so paying attention to those things early on is also going to build a lot of confidence in, hey, I know what I want and I know what I deserve, and I'm not going to settle for less. Mm. And oftentimes, if you ignore those things and you press on anyway, then she turns you down, and it's like, if I was being honest with myself, I already knew that wasn't a good fit. And you can have so much more power by being the one. Not that it's like a competition of like who can turn down who, but if you had gone with your gut or paid attention to those signs, then you wouldn't have been rejected. You would have been able to say like, hey, this isn't for me first, and avoid that sort of confidence hit.
It's such a good point. It's confidence building to actually trust your instinct. Yeah. And I find that a lot of guys that do really well with women, it's not that they just never get rejected, but you never really see them get completely just like rejected or something comes out of the blue. Mm-hmm. What I've picked up is like, they're very good at kind of paying attention to body language of like, they've kind of see the signs. And so they're not pushing to the point where they have to get, this is just not going to happen. Like they have to get completely rejected because they're paying attention.
Totally.
Can you talk about some of those like non-verbal cues? Because I think that that's another thing of like, we sometimes as men, we don't pay attention to that, like the softer skills, like the body language, the way that she's sitting, those sort of things.
Yeah. Body language is so important and can be misinterpreted and underrated as a way to understand how somebody else is feeling. Something that I actually talk about this in my masterclass, is reading body language. And guys will be like, well, yeah, she had her arms crossed, so I didn't end up asking for her phone number. And it's like, okay, her arms crossed in isolation doesn't mean anything. Sure, arms crossed is a sign of closed body language and not being open. But if she's engaging in conversation, it might just mean she's cold or that she's slightly nervous or uncomfortable. So you need to look for clusters and of cues, not any one thing. Are her arms crossed and she's also looking away and also not asking you questions? Yeah, don't ask for her phone number, or it might be a sign that she's not into the date. But if her arms are crossed, but she's engaging and making eye contact and nodding along, and her body's facing towards you, it might mean nothing at all. So you need to look for what her overall body language tells you versus any one thing.
Can we for a second, can we talk about the end of a date? And the reason I kind of see it as one of like the key moments, especially in that first date, like the ending of a date. And you'll hear dating coaches or the people that are experts on the internet give different perspectives, right? Of like, never go for your first kiss on the first date.
Yeah.
Or don't have sex on the first date. Or like, what is kind of when it comes to how a date should end and kind of closing it and bringing it to a close in the right way, where does your mind go? Is there even an importance specifically to the ending of a date?
Yeah, so there is. The end of the date is very important because it is the vibe that you are sending her off with. It's your last impression. So if the end of the date is awkward, or you don't set the romantic tone, that's the perception that she is going to walk away with of the entire date. So you do want the end of the date to be strong. And I don't say that to like cause anxiety of like, oh my God, I need to nail it. But it matters. I would be lying if I said it didn't. And I am a big fan. There's no right or wrong way. There's no hard and fast rules. You always have to end with a kiss. You never sleep with her. Like, it matters. Each person and what their expectations are is going to be highly dependent on what makes sense here. But if you're on a date, you have both mutually opted in to exploring a romantic connection. So a kiss at the end of the first date, if the vibe is right, is not inappropriate. But the first time you touch a woman shouldn't be when you go for the kiss. You should have built up to that and seen the positive signs that she is interested before going for it. So have you touched her knee? Have you touched her hand? If she pulled back, okay, not a good sign. But if she leaned in or returned the touch or held eye contact for a long time, these are all indications that she's comfortable with you. I'm not saying you have to go for the kiss, but if those things are all true and at the end of the date you feel like you would like to kiss her and that the vibe was there, but maybe you're a little bit unsure about whether it's appropriate to go for it. My favorite line is, I would really like to kiss you right now. And then just stopping. Because guys are always like, oh, you can't ask for the kiss. That's such a turn off. And it's like, that is a way of asking that is actually really sexy. I would like to XYZ. And that can really be used. I would really like to give you a hug goodbye. I would like to give you a kiss. I would like to do this thing to you in the bedroom. If you're already at that point in the relationship, is a really good way to ask for permission and ask if she's comfortable in a way that doesn't kill the mood.
Yeah. And you know what I was even just thinking as you were saying it, because I think what you said was so good, is the importance of also delivery as well, of like how you say something. Because I think about I would like to give you a kiss right now. Like you're kind of asking in the way that your voice is, your voice intonation versus I would like to give you a kiss right now.
And not making eye contact versus making eye contact. Back to the body language, standing with good posture. Posture is the key to seeming confident, whether you're approaching a woman, whether you're on a date, whether you're suggesting a kiss, whether it's the first photo of your dating app profile. It really communicates a lot. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned intimacy, even like having sex on the first date. I want to talk about that for a second, because I think that sex is something that gives men and women, but for men, it gives like a lot of anxiety of like, okay, I like this girl, like I want her to like me, I want this to go well. And especially when it's like in the first few times, you're like, I want to perform. Like there's all of this thinking. Like you spoke about the overanalyzer, the overthinker. It's like, it's running wild when you're thinking about those first like sexual experiences with someone. What is like, first of all, do you get clients coming to you that's actually like a big thing, which is tripping them up or like holding back their dating experience, is sex is that experience in the bedroom?
So that's not my area of expertise. It's something I touch on in my courses, is sex and intimacy, and in my coaching, but it's not what I am an expert in. But it, to your point, it is something that can be very anxiety inducing. And it's actually the reason, and again, there's no right or wrong. There are plenty of happily married couples who had sex on the first date, but that is the reason I don't recommend rushing intimacy or having sex on the first date, is because, to your point, it can feel like a really big deal. So if the sex isn't good, which is definitely possible the first time it happens, and even more so if you aren't comfortable with one another, it can be really easy for either party. But I mean, I'm thinking about this from a man's perspective of dating a woman, for her to be like, that was awkward, or I regret doing that. It moved too fast. So I'm just going to move on and, go on a date with somebody else, or like let that one go. So whereas if you have spent some time getting to know each other and you've already gotten past the point of like the awkward first encounters and you've built up to sex, so you also know each other in the non intimate sense of like, we have things in common, we have shared values, I like them as a person, then it puts less pressure on that first sexual experience needing to be amazing, because you already know you like each other, so you're willing to give it another shot. And things are going to feel less awkward because you're comfortable with one another. So there's no right or wrong, but that's why I advocate for waiting a little bit and building up into that point. And there's a lot of fun things to do between kiss and sex that can progress the relationship.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point of like, you actually have a foundation, built. And it's probably a lot of those scenarios where it's like two people have sex and then they completely go in their opposite direction. It was like there was an attraction and then it was like a heat of the moment, but there was no foundation. So if that sexual experience wasn't good, then it's like, okay, there's no reason for this to continue because we have nothing else. Okay, no, I think that's such a good point. From the perspective of a woman, because I think this is actually something, it's a unique perspective that you can give, because you're a woman, but then you're also like a dating coach that interacts with thousands of men. What in a woman's mind was like, you're comfortable to actually even have a sexual experience with someone? I think we speak about it from like the male perspective, but like from a woman's perspective, like what is the timing, or like what is happening? What is the experience that you're like, okay, I'm actually ready for it to move to this level?
I feel like that's so dependent on the woman. I'm almost hesitant to give an answer because it's going to be so personal to any one woman. But I would say the most common thing that a woman is going to need to feel before being comfortable having sex is a certain amount of trust and safety. She's probably not going to have the average woman is not going to have sex with you if she doesn't trust you and feel safe with you. So making sure that foundation is there, which happens over time. Sure, you can say certain things, but it's really going to be more about your actions. Will get her on board with that step.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a ton of sense. Trust and safety. I think that's so good. You know what? And here's where I want to end. Is I want to talk about that stage of like, okay, maybe we've gone on a few dates, and I really like this girl. Like I feel like she could be the one. And I'm thinking about for the guy that's like been super into his career, and then all of a sudden it's like you meet this girl and you both like each other and she's reciprocating. It's not one-sided. You're like, this is the one. And there's almost like that feeling of like you get too excited about it and you end up shooting yourself in the foot. Can you talk about like, how do we just go from those kind of first few dates that are going well to actually building something where it's not just the guy is really excited, it's also the woman is like, she's seeing it on the same terms, like we're on the same page. How do we just go from fun dates to actually, oh, this could be something?
So I think a lot of that so there's like a couple things to address here. One, as the guy who's planning the dates, you want to keep things interesting. You want to have experiences together that are going to help her advance in the relationship as well. So, okay, let's say you already know. You're like, I already think she's amazing. I want to make sure she feels the same way. Going to dinner and just talking over and over and over probably isn't going to get her there. But having new experiences together, whether that's taking a cooking class, taking a short trip together, riding bikes, doing an escape room, mixing up the dates to see each other in different environments is going to help progress things forward and help both parties understand if the other person is a good fit for them. So I'm not saying it's going to help her definitely fall in love with you, but if the possibility is there, that is going to help move things forward.
I think we've mentioned this a few times, but seeing it as an experience, because I think for guys sometimes it's like, because we're logical. It's like, oh, I like her, job done, move on. Like it's like, whereas I think it being an experience. So like, I don't know, maybe the second date was dinner, and then the third date was something completely different, and the fourth date maybe you went somewhere like kind of out of town that's a bit different. Like seeing it as an experience where they get to see you in different environments. And you actually have stories that you can tell from the time together.
Just because, let's say you go on date one and you're like, great, I like her. I know I want to lock this down. You are likely going to overinvest then, which is going to lead to you acting slightly differently or maybe very differently than you would otherwise. And that can often be a turnoff because if she's not there yet and she still has to explore and she feels like you're really full on, that can be like, why is he like coming on so strong? So I'm actually a big advocate of dating multiple people at once, not in a dishonest way and not, I have two girlfriends way, but if you've been on one date with someone, you shouldn't be, this is virtually still a stranger. You shouldn't be putting all your eggs in that basket. You should still be going on dates with other people. You should still be meeting more people in person or online just to keep your options open and to keep yourself from over investing in any one woman too soon. That doesn't mean don't invest ever. It just means you need to make sure the fit is there and really get to know each other both directions before you start acting in a way that is like, okay, you're the person I definitely want to be with.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, the over-investing. Even when you say that, over-investing, is there like a client or an experience or maybe even one of your friends that like it immediately comes to mind of like a scenario where they just over-invested?
Oh my God, I see it all the time. It's not like any one scenario. That's actually a really big thing that I think men struggle with before working with me is they've had a tendency to over-invest, or maybe they come to me after a specific woman they over-invested in that they were really excited about, then turns them down. It's so common, and it's really common for both men and women, and something people, both sides, I think, get wrong in dating, is they like the idea of the person and what they are imagining could be more than what is actually the reality of who that person is or what they have with that person. I actually did just have a friend go through this. I can tell a quick story about it. There was this guy at a bar. It was like her neighborhood bar, so she went there all the time. She always saw him. He never talked to her, but they were always, in her mind, making eyes at each other. Eventually, literally after months of this, they end up talking one night and they go home together and they sleep together. And she's like, it was the best night ever. We have so much in common. Like, we had such a deep connection. We had the best sex. Like, it was great. So she's like thinking it's amazing. And he doesn't really make any effort after that. He doesn't really text her. She still sees him at the bar, but he doesn't try and take her out. He doesn't try and date her. And she's like, really like, if he just got to know me, I feel like he would then really like me too. There's all these things about me that he doesn't know, and our connection was so rare and so special. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You're obsessing about the idea of this person, what you could have together, and if he just knew you, then you would be able to do all of these things together that you both enjoy. But the reality is you saw him at the bar for months and he never approached you. He didn't text you after the date. He's made no effort since then. Like, this is not a person who is giving you the signs that he is ready for a relationship or deserving of your attention. And because you slept together, going back to the topic we talked about before, you feel like, I have to make this work. It can go either direction, either like, I'm going to move on because I did this too soon. Or the other side of it's like, I have to make this work so it wasn't a mistake to sleep with him. When the reality is everything he has shown you from the first time you met him to now indicates that he is not capable of giving you what you want and not ready for a relationship. But you have told yourself this story that it could be something. And that is an example of overinvesting.
Yeah. You know, it's so true. And I'm like, as you were saying it, I'm like, because I think everyone has had that experience of there was someone in their life. There's usually at least one instance.
Yeah, everyone's done this.
Everyone has done it, men and women, of like, they're almost giving you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And you're like so into it. And where my mind goes, I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that in us as humans that we can be interacting with someone and maybe they're texting us, I don't know, every 4 days, but like the second they text, we're like right there by the phone, or like we're so into it and they're not into it, and we kind of in the back of our mind we know it, but we keep convincing ourselves, but there was that one time where they did do, because there's always that one time when they did show you some interest, and that's like keeping the hope alive. Like, what is that in us as humans that we keep pursuing?
I think a part of that comes down to self-worth and self-confidence. Like, if you really feel good about yourself and you really know your worth, you're going to be a lot less likely to take that from somebody. You're going to be more likely to walk away when someone is giving you the bare minimum. And that's, that ebbs and flows in everybody. But if you're feeling really confident in who you are and what you bring to the table, you're not going to tolerate that from somebody.
I'm curious for you because it's like, it's interesting, right? Because you give so many people advice on dating, and I'm sure like you're married now, but I'm sure there was like a whole process of like your actual dating story. Was that something personally for you, like the building that self-worth to the point where you could actually have a great relationship?
Oh yeah, I can definitely think about times in my 20s and I met my husband when I was 29. So I can think about times, so my dating, it was primarily, before that, or it was all before that. But times where I tolerated things that I would never have tolerated later because I didn't feel that self-worth and that great about myself. And like I said before, this is like an ebb and flow. It's not like, it's like how you feel confident. It's like one day you can feel really confident and sometimes your confidence is lower, and that's okay. And I think dating and self-worth follows that same sort of like, it's always a work in progress, and you always have to be working on yourself and your mindset and your mental state, but you're going to have better results dating when you're at your prime mental state and you feel the best about yourself and you feel really confident.
I think it's such a good point, and I'm happy that you make the caveat that it's an ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we want to feel like we reach this point where we're complete. We're like, now I'm just confident.
Yeah.
And I'm always confident. But for you, and especially when you work with guys, what have you seen has worked for like getting someone over that hill where they're like, they actually do have a confidence about themselves and a self-worth? Because I can hear all the tactics in the world, but if the foundation is broken, if I just fundamentally don't believe that I'm worthy of love and a relationship and a great partnership with someone who likes me, it's all gonna fall. And so like, I think those are sometimes the most difficult things to fix, because it's not a tactic. It's not say this or do this at the end of the day. It's like you have to fix it internally.
Yeah, it's like the underlying components. And so a lot of the stuff we've talked about, getting good at hobbies that you enjoy, spending time at the gym, making sure that you are happy with your appearance. These are all things that are going to build confidence and make you feel better about yourself. One level deeper than that, I would say, is beyond, really what I focus on as a dating coach. In my coaching and in my courses, I absolutely talk about how to build confidence and the importance of self-worth and, becoming the person that is going to be attractive to other people. But if that's something that you or somebody listening is really struggling with, then I would say absolutely seek out professional help there. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. And those professionals, if you really have deep-seated issues with anxiety and confidence and self-worth, like, are worth addressing before you spend a ton of time on the tactical stuff, because you do need to have that base. And there's a catch-22 here, because on one hand you need that base, and on the other hand, I don't want people to feel like, oh, I need to be perfect and I need to be always confident and 100% fulfilled before I start my dating journey. No, you can do these things hand in hand. Some of my most successful clients work with me as a dating coach, and they have a therapist that they work with on the other side, because we bring different things to the table. Most therapists I know aren't going to be great at the texting dynamics and the tactical advice. Just like I'm not going to be good at helping you unpack childhood traumas that is leading to anxiety, So those things can really go well hand in hand together.
Yeah. Do you have clients that you work with? I'm assuming you do, but like clients that you work with, they start working with you, and midway through working with you, they actually realize they actually need a therapist, or they need someone else.
Oh, yeah.
In combination.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll get through, even the course and be like, start the course and be like, oh, like, I realize in combination with this, it would be really helpful if I addressed some of these deeper issues, or not even issues, but considerations before I continue on with my dating journey, because they realize they'll get better results if they are, whatever it is that they are facing or dealing with, if they have that ironed out a bit more. That's why I have a go-to therapist, shout out Nicole Evans, who I love referring clients to, because she gets it, and we partner often in that field.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think there was something I saw you mention on your website. It was like the 3 things that women look for in a partner, or that women want in a partner. And so I'm thinking about almost that final step of, like, not the final step, but of actually being in a relationship, like a lifelong, or like a long-term partner. What are some of those things that, of like, women are like, this is important that it's going to be there if it's going to be an actual, like, a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship?
So I think one of the things there that can be overlooked, and we've kind of talked about throughout our chat, is the component of expressing desire. So you can be a great guy and have everything going for you, but if you aren't able to express your desire for a woman in a romantic sense and make her feel that, then she's probably not going to see you as boyfriend material. So you could be really successful at your job, you can be really fun to be around, but if you're missing that component that fuels the chemistry and the romance, it's probably not going to advance to anything like the significant other field.
That sexual desire. Okay, you know what? Here's where I want to end, which is, like I mentioned right in the beginning, you started doing this thing, and it almost, like, you almost stumbled into it. Like, it happened largely because of COVID. And I was actually watching your experience on Shark Tank, and you, like, talking about the journey and the story of kind of how you got to where you are now. And it's like, you've experienced a lot of success with this. And it's almost like it's taken on a life of its own. And you have so many men that come to you looking for advice. I'm curious for how it feels to you now. Because obviously, like, you just became a mother. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And it's like, men look to you as, like, this expert in dating. For you on a personal level, because I get the success of it, for you on a personal level, when you look forward, like, what are the exciting things to you? Like, what are the things that kind of, they give you the energy for this? Because I see the energy in your content. Like, what is exciting to you?
Yeah. I touched on this a bit before, but the reason I do what I do is because I love seeing people in happy relationships. Nothing makes my life better than getting to share my experiences and my already, fulfilling life with a partner I love and cherish. And now having added a daughter to that is like incredible. And so the idea that I can help other people find that really is what drives me and what excites me and what is why I do what I do. In a business sense, I love the courses I offer because I know they're really effective. I have something for everyone. I love coaching. I think that keeps me like in tune with what guys are struggling with and how I can help them. But something from a business perspective that I'm looking forward to is I also recently started doing matchmaking. So that's really for guys who have already done the work to become great at dating. They know what the tactical stuff, they know what they bring to the table, and they know what to do at the table, so to say. And now I'm also able to set them up on dates. And I think I'm really good at being able to see what somebody says they're looking for, and maybe even seeing some of the stuff that they don't know they're looking for, finding the woman on the other side of that and pairing them together. And that's been a really fun and challenging and exciting new aspect of the business for me that's going really well.
Yeah. I'm curious on that because you explained why you like to do it and seeing people in like these loving relationships. Is there like a story or an experience or a client that comes to mind where you're like, this is exactly why I do what I do? Mm-hmm. Like the way that this ended and the place that they're in now from us working together is exactly why I do this. Mm-hmm. Does anyone come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, so many people. I feel, I have a whole bulletin board in my office of people who have sent me photos from their weddings and engagements and with their girlfriends. So there's no like right way to end up there. And I wouldn't even say, I don't only define success as having a partner. Mm-hmm. If that's what someone's goal is, and like I want that for them, and that's ultimately what a lot of my clients want. But I don't consider you a failure or lacking achieving success until that happens. My goal for my clients is to feel confident, feel like they have the tools to meet women they're excited about, and feel like they are on the track to whatever their journey, like, whether it's just going on more dates with women they're excited about or whether it's finding their partner, it's that they have the skills to make that happen. So I do want to be clear. It's like I don't just find success. It's not like the end all be all is like you have to have someone you're excited about. It's really that like you feel good about your life and like you feel like you can fulfill whatever it is you want.
Blaine Anderson, I think it's the perfect way to end. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this episode, you're going to absolutely love what we did with this one right here. Click here.